So now you get to see one of my favorite things about CSS. I love this. So I'm just going to show it to you and then we'll explore how it works. But we are in 0.19 still, CSS selectors, and then 0.5 pseudo class. And now we're going into 0.7 typography. And we're going to look at first letter. So this is something that we can do. And check it out. How cool is that? Like, take the first letter and give it some like cool stylizing. And it looks kind of like a book to me. But not only can we do that, I'll show you the first line one. We could also do the whole first line, and then I'll show you how it works. So here's the first line, and the first whole line is stylized a certain way. Not only that, as the size of the first line changes, so right now we're at looked across the, right, for that first line, and notice how it's reformatting it on the fly. So depending upon the size of the viewport, right, somebody's looking at it on a mobile phone or on a tablet or on a desktop, it's giving us a different formatting depending upon how much is there. So that's my favorite deal. I really like that. I think it's totally cool. And it's a nice little effect that you could add in. It could obviously be much more subtle than this, but a nice little effect that you could add in to make your text just kind of pop and stand out a little bit more. So how do we do that? So the first one is, there's the HTML, index.html. Let me just open that one. And we'll open up main CSS, right click it, split vertically. And we are using the pseudo element first letter. So this has 2 colons, right? And it's known as a pseudo element, all right? So pseudo class was 1 colon. Pseudo element was 2 colons. A little mnemonic device, classes have 1 colon because a C kind of looks like 1 colon, right? I don't know which one's a C for you. That's a C for me, so that's probably a C for you. And so that's how it's 1 colon for a pseudo class. For a pseudo element, well, an E's got like 3, right? It's got 3, and so this is actually 4, so it's 1 more, whatever, pseudo element. But this also works with just 1 on most browsers, though technically it's supposed to be 2. And there it is. Refresh, right? Still working, even with 1. But you could do 1 or 2. If you look at the documentation on that, just to sort of explore minutia, and that is first letter. There we go. MDN first letter. You can see right here it's got 2, but then it also says, you know what, 1 works most of the time. All right, so that's first letter. And here we have font family, font size, and line height. We haven't seen those yet. We're going to learn all about fonts coming up. But width, margin, padding, top, right? A little padding. We know what padding is, so that's the padding on the top. And then here's margin, 20 pixels all around, top right, bottom left, which is being applied there. So that's how that CSS works. And let's look at the CSS for the other one. So here's the other CSS. There's first letter, which we just saw on the previous one, first letter. But then here's the pseudo element, and a lot of people just call it a pseudo class. But here's the pseudo element, first line. And so it's making that whole first line as if it's an element in and of itself, standing out on its own. Maybe that's why they call it a pseudo element. But making the whole first line look a certain way. And so font weight here is bold. So this is just a little bit of a preview of font family, font size, line height, and font weight. We're going to learn all that later, so don't sweat that right now. But this is one of my favorite things in CSS, being able to format with a pseudo element, the first letter, and the first line. And you could call these pseudo classes if you want, and they also work with just 1 colon. All right, so that's a little bit about first letter and first line.